Penguin Random House Audio presents The Happiness of Pursuit, Finding the Quest That Will Bring Purpose to Your Life, by Chris Guillebeau. Read for you by George Newbern. 1. Beginnings. Prologue. On the Road. It was nearly 1 a.m. when I stepped off a plane and stumbled into the international airport in Dakar, Senegal. I'd been here many times before, but it always took a moment to regain my bearings. Everywhere I turned, a different guy offered to help with my bags. A series of offers I didn't need, since I always travel light, but the persistent porters were hard to turn down. A shouting match erupted between two of the men. I knew what the stakes were. Whoever served as my escort would be eligible for the tip. I picked out one of the porters at random and followed him to a small alcove above the shouting crowd. A couple of plastic chairs were nailed to the floor. "Here," he told me in French. "You can stay here and sleep." I looked at the chairs, paid off the guy, and set up camp for what I knew would be a long night. My final destination was the tiny republic of Guinea-Bissau, just half an hour by air from Dakar. But the flight didn't leave until 7 a.m. What to do for 6 hours? I could have gone into the city and found a hotel, but the prospect of 3 hours of sleep before trudging back to the airport wasn't enticing. Better to ride it out until I reached my final destination and was able to crash in a real bed. I had a bottle of water, procured upon arrival, and a 3-ounce bottle of vodka, procured in the Frankfurt airport lounge prior to heading to Africa earlier that day. Together with an airline blanket, thanks Lufthansa, was all I needed for a few hours of fitful sleep. 4 days earlier, I had walked in the rain past Grand Central Terminal in Manhattan. My destination was a tiny consulate office in a sublet United Nations building. The office had no listed hours. For a fee of $100, payable in cash, no receipt provided, I received the visa I'd been hunting down for several months. This trip would take me from New York to Frankfurt to Dakar to Bissau and then back out via Lisbon and London a few days later. It was both a journey and a task. Even when you're worn down from 3 continents of travel, it's hard to sleep on a plastic chair in a West African transit area. I was careful to keep the strap from my laptop bag coiled around my leg, but still woke with a jolt every few moments as I worried about a return visit from the helpful porters. When I managed to drift into real sleep, a swarm of mosquitoes arrived to keep watch, ensuring that I never dozed for long. I thought about what a laughable experience it was. Why, after having achieved a healthy measure of career success, with plenty of projects at home and a worldwide community of friends in more pleasant surroundings, did I find myself propped up on a plastic chair in the middle of the night in Senegal? What was the journey and the task? First things first. This area of the world is where it all started, many years ago. 10 years earlier, I had roamed the region as an aid worker, serving as a volunteer for a medical charity. Through trial and error, I learned how to avoid bribes, well, except for airport porters, and make my way through chaotic arrival scenes like the one I encountered tonight. So, why had I returned? It was simple, really. This time, I was on a different kind of mission. For the past decade, I had devoted much of my time, money, and attention to visiting every country in the world. Every single country in every region, with no country left behind. It was a lifelong challenge I had pondered for years before finally accepting it as the quest I would pursue for as long as it took. This mission had led me to breakaway former Soviet republics and remote islands in the South Pacific. I'd watched the only flight of the night on another small island take off without me. I'd successfully arrived in Pakistan and Saudi Arabia without a visa, somehow convincing the immigration authorities to let me stay. I'd been deported from a country I'm still trying to forget. Along the way, there were many nights like this one in Dakar, where I arrived with no plans except onward travel, flying or riding in a crowded minibus to another small country that made the news only when it was in civil war or threatened with disappearance due to climate change. In a weird, almost masochistic way, I liked the idea of returning to Senegal. Full circle, back to the beginning, that kind of thing. After more than 190 countries, the journey would soon be coming to an end. Not yet, though. First, I had to make it to Guinea-Bissau, my final country in Africa. The Dakar airport won't win any awards for overnight stays, but when the sun rises over West Africa, it's worth waking up for. It happens very quickly. Shift your eyes and you'll miss it. 1 minute hazy, the next minute, rise and shine, traveler. By that point, I had stumbled back down to the check-in zone and cleared the relaxed security point. I bought an instant coffee and sipped it as I stood in the queue for boarding. Far from home, there's a feeling you can experience even when you're bone-weary. No matter how exhausted, 18 hours of flying, 2 hours of sleep on a plastic chair, and no matter how ridiculous the situation, I'm flying to Guinea-Bissau for no good reason, you can still savor the thrill of adventure. As the caffeine kicked in and I stretched my legs, I began to feel better. As crazy as it may have seemed to some people, I was out in the world doing something I loved. Life was good. The half-hour flight took us along the coastline at low altitude. The sun fully unfolded in the sky. I dozed against the window seat, and before I knew it, we were wheels down in the capital city. Landing on the other side, there was no jet bridge that led to a shiny arrivals hall, or even a passenger bus to ferry arrivals to the building. I walked down the stairs of the aging aircraft onto the tarmac and directly into the dusty immigration building a short distance away. The welcoming committee appeared to have taken the day off. Instead, a lone immigration guy glanced at my papers and stamped me through without a word. I watched as the bags were thrown onto a single creaky conveyor belt. Once again, the porters fought over rights to luggage duties. The morning with the beautiful sunrise was dissolving into a sweltering day, and another group of men competed to become the chosen taxi driver to deliver the occasional foreigner to the only hotel. But I smiled at my good fortune, for I had just achieved another milestone on the long quest to go everywhere. Out of 54 African countries, Guinea-Bissau was my very last. After 10 years of exploration, I had only 2 more countries to go before completing the whole world. Once upon a time. People have always been captivated by quests. History's earliest stories tell of epic journeys and grand adventures. Whether the history is African, Asian, or European, the plot line is the same. A hero sets off in search of something elusive that has the power to change both their life and the world. In the Judeo-Christian story of creation, Adam and Eve are banished from the Garden of Eden and sent to toil the earth. In the Buddhist story, the question of practice and struggle is emphasized over creation. Sacred texts skip straight to the quest toward enlightenment. The world's best-known literature reflects our desire to hear about struggle and sacrifice in pursuit of a goal. From Aesop's fables to Arabian Nights, many classic stories are about adventure and quests. Shakespeare kept us enthralled with quest stories of shipwrecks and mistaken identity. Sometimes all was well that ended well, but sometimes tragedy followed as the natural consequence of a flawed character's poor decisions. In modern times, Hollywood knows that quests are an easy sell. Consider the blockbuster franchises Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones, and countless others. The tougher the odds and the higher the stakes, the better. As long as the audience has something to believe in, we have to believe in a hero's mission. And once we do, we'll gladly stick around to see how the hero can overcome. The best video games, which now draw more of our money and attention than books,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?